Aren't you glad you come to First Unity? I said, aren't you glad that we've got these singers? Ooh, Lordy child, we've been having church all morning. Lean on me. I love that song, actually. That's a fabulous song. You know what? And that's what God, in your heart, actually asks you to do. Lean on me. And that's the spirit that's in all the fathers here. You know, in the book of Genesis, it says creating humanity basically in our image. Our being the masculine and the feminine. Masculine and the feminine. A couple of weeks ago, we celebrated the feminine on Mother's Day, right? You can talk back to me. Today, we celebrate the masculine. And that masculine and that feminine energy is in each and every single one of you in this house today. And that masculine and that feminine energy is also in everyone who's watching us online. And thank you very much for joining us there. If you're a father, would you do us the honors of standing? We would like to. And we celebrate all the father energies, whether it be a grandma, an aunt, or they say in the South, auntie. And I had several of those. Woo, child, I got some stories. It could be an uncle. It could be a cousin. It can be a pastor. It can be whoever God plants in your life to give you that shoulder to lean on. That's what we're celebrating today. And if you're a father like myself, if your father has transitioned into his next journey, we have a special service coming up, and you're more than welcome to come on July 14th on a Sunday evening. We celebrate the people who made their transition into the next journey. I never say, you know, my father passed away, and I love the story about it. He dropped dead on his bicycle. He had been sick for a prolonged period of time. He went every Sunday morning, or every morning, and rode with his buddies about 3 miles. And they said they took off in front of him. And over he went. And they said he didn't know he hit the ground. The beautiful thing I celebrated when I saw him laying there at his funeral was I celebrated the fact that he had gone on to his next journey. I didn't get all caught up in the fact that, oh, woe is me. But I celebrated the fact that he had gone on to his next assignment. And he was probably tormenting Elizabeth Taylor because he liked him dark and lovely. But he went on. And so you're more than welcomed and encouraged to come in and celebrate the remembrance of that service. And it's funny, when you're 4 years old, you say, well, my daddy can do anything because he's a superhero. When they're 8 years old, you say, well, my daddy knows a lot. That's about when you get into second grade. When you're 12 years old, you say, well, my daddy knows quite everything. Then when you're 16 years old, you say, Father, he's old-fashioned. I thought my father was so old-fashioned, but I look back now at pictures of him and he was fly. Woo! No wonder when he walked in places, people went, Child, I'll tell you a little side story. My mother said when she met him in New York, he had candy-striped pants on, a red convertible, a white hat, and a red feather out of it. He was fly. Well, that apple didn't fall far. But when you're 20 years old, you say, that old man, he's way outdated. Then when you're 30 years old, you say, he might know a little bit. When you're 35 years old, you say, before we make this decision, why don't we ask Dad? When you're 50 years old, you see where I'm going with this. When you're 50 years old, you say, I wonder what Dad would say about this. Then when you're 65 years old, you say, I wish I could ask Dad what he thought. Hey, Papa. I kind of have his hands. I know I have his feet. But thank you, Papa, for giving me a minister's heart. When he passed away, there were 800 people that went from his casket through the funeral home and down the sidewalk. That's because he had a minister's heart, and he touched people. Because in that line, he had bikers, lawyers, doctors, trans people, gay people, straight people, a few of those, truck drivers. He touched humanity. And I thank you very much, Daddy. My father was a piece of work. Thank you. We'll talk after the service. But the beautiful thing, my father was so loving. Chris said to me one time, "You have the daddy I always wanted." And I love the fact that people around me loved my daddy so much because he was a daddy to everyone. He was a daddy to everyone he met. He helped everybody he met. And I told Chris, when you know you're in the family, my father will probably come through the kitchen with his pajamas pulled up to about here, dancing. And he did it, did he not? But he loved his boys. My father loved his boys. I don't even think I remember my father ever being mad at me growing up. Could have been a different story as an adult, but growing up. But there was a funny thing, as I shared with Chris, I said, you will learn that my father does these, when you know you're in the family, he does these odd things. But just run with them. He would crawl in the bedroom in the morning. And you would wake up and the only thing would be those big, beautiful brown eyes peering over the mattress. And he would say, "Boy, when you can get your butt out of that bed?" But my father was a lovely man. Lovely man. Thank you very much, Daddy. And thank you for continuing to visit me. Side note, that is not me in the picture. That is my brother. But look here. I wasn't even in the world yet, but that was a little gleam of me in his eye. But you know what I love? I love a story in the book of Luke. And it's the story about the prodigal son. And many ministers teach this from various angles and various degrees. And what I love about the story of the prodigal son is, and I'll paraphrase for time's sake, is the father was standing on the porch of the house and the prodigal son had taken off. And as it says, he was laying with the swine. In other words, he was a party boy. But he had what most people would say had lost his way. But the beautiful thing is, much like God, the father stood on the porch and watched the horizon. Never gave up, continued to watch the horizon. And the beautiful thing was when the party boy had laid with the swine long enough, he decided, well, maybe I need to go home. Maybe I need to get back in tune with my destiny. Maybe I need to get back in tune with my dream. Maybe I need to be back in tune with myself. So across the horizon, the prodigal son peeked up. The father left the porch, didn't wait for the prodigal son to come to the house so he could do this. You know, you've all had those mothers and fathers who've done this. No, the father took off running to meet his son. Didn't wait till he came back. And he screamed and he told his staff, his servants, run and get cook the fatted calf. Bring a robe and the best ring that we have because the son is home. Because the son is home. God does the same thing to you. He waits till you come to yourself along the horizon. And he waits till you realize that maybe you need to get back in line with your destiny. Maybe you need to get back in line with your dream. Maybe you need to get back in life where you're going to flow in that energy that God has given you to push you into your destiny. The beautiful thing is when you start moving in that momentum and you peak the horizon, guess what? The Creator, God, meets you. Doesn't wait for you to come home, but meets you. Meets you where you are. Meets you where you are. You may feel like you're lost in life, but just stay focused on your destiny. Stay focused on your dreams. Stay focused on what God has planted in your heart, and God will meet you halfway there, ready with open arms and saying, welcome home, son, welcome home. Thank you very much for being here.
My dad in his life had several hobbies. He decided along the way that he was going to become a farmer. And my grandfather had 1,000 acres of land, so he had lots of room to play, and he could get as many cows as he wanted. And so it was very interesting. There were 3 of us, and every time we'd go back and visit home as older adults, my dad would say, come on and get in the truck with me. I need us to go for a ride because we need to go check the fence. My brothers and myself would always say, why didn't he just spend the money and get that fence fixed? We realized years later that it was his way of being with us. It was our time. It was the ride that we got to take when the rest of the world would stop and nothing else was going on. Many of you have heard me say that one of my favorite stories about my father is way before the internet thought for you, or Alexa or Google Voice or your computer and all the other things. You know, before then, you'd have to really use your wisdom to figure out how to do your clocks 2 times a year, moving forward or moving back. And I'd always call my dad, and we'd engage in this conversation, and I'd say, which is it? It's very important. I got a big meeting in the morning. I can't be late. So he'd go on and he'd say, you move it forward. You make it forward. And I'd always say, are you sure? And finally, he got up enough energy to say, Temple Ann, don't call me anymore if you don't believe the answer that I give you. And that's the way it is when we're dealing with this presence and power, the creator of our lives. We ask for the information, and we get the answer. But the key is believing the answer that we've been given. And time again, you say, are you sure? You sure I'm not in a good relationship? Are you sure I got to let, Johnny go or Mary go? Are you sure? And the universe is going, what do you need? Thunder, light, bolts? Yes, we're sure. We're just waiting on you to be sure. Move on. Let's go. Let's don't take this into the afterlife. Yes, we're sure. And the universe is always nudging us and giving us these insights and these signs, but our reality is to believe the answer that we're getting. At least believe it and sit with the answer that's been given. It may not be definitive that that's the exact action that you will take, but what will happen is it will lead you in the direction that you're supposed to go. But it's key that you believe it. When I look at Charles Fillmore, one of the things he said that is so powerful to me in my life is that a prayer without desire in it, a prayer without sincerity in it, a prayer without soul in it, and a prayer without spirit in it is a fruitless prayer. I mean, right? Yeah. What'd you say? There you go. There you go. It's a fruitless prayer. If it lacks desire, if it lacks sincerity, if it lacks soul, and if it lacks spirit, what's the point? Right? You'll hear people, I'm prosperous, I'm abundant, I'm loving, I live in a kind world, and everything's fine, namaste, and everything's bright, and it's lovely, but they tend to not even, it doesn't seem like they're believing what they're saying. I am a rote. It's rote, right? And so when you're looking at a prayer, which means in the way that you are thinking, in the way that you are calling into your now, your life, when you look at that, you want it to come from desire. Prayer is designed to pray up your life. Prayer is designed to go up, to go out, to go further. And you've been given this desire, and where did the desire come from? Came from the universe, didn't it? Gave it to you. All right? A lot of people go, oh no, I have this desire. Now what am I going to do? What? You were given the desire. Why? So you would pray and say, I've got this desire, I've got it, and I'm willing to fulfill it. It's not like you're telling the universe, I'm giving you the information that you don't know about, that you already gave me, that you're the one that created it, but I'm letting you know that I might be available to allow this to unfold in your life, and I want you to be sure that you heard me. Hello. You're simply saying, I gotcha. I heard it. I'm going to realize it. I don't know how, but I know what. And most people stay in, how's this going to happen? I was given this big old dream, but I don't know how, so I'm just going to sit on it and do nothing, right? So it's a desire. A prayer with desire is to change your consciousness. As Ernest Holmes would say, a prayer without a mental equivalent is just lofty ideas. So you have this mental equivalent. A prayer without sincerity. You know, people will say, I'm going to get myself together. My parents want me to. My boyfriend wants me to. Right. A prayer without sincerity. The sincerity of your heart. What is it for you? How will it impact you? How will it unfold in your life? Are you sincere? Because we're not talking in our life about a God, a person that we're begging and pleading with and, promising things, We're not talking about that kind of God. Not in our teaching. We're talking about a download of a full expressed self and that alignment of that relatability, you see. And so when you speak something, you want to be sincere in your life about what matters to you, right? And have that level of energy. So when you speak whatever prayer, even if you're reading one, make sure in your heart that you are sincere, because that's the alignment of the truth. The other we look at is soul. And people will say, well, how do I know that, that I'm following the path of my soul? How do I know that? Well, there's a key. You're happy. There's a key. You're happy. If you have long-term chronic unhappiness, if you have chronic happiness, you're following the path of your soul. If you have long-term chronic unhappiness, then you want to check that. My dad would say, I can't believe you're leaving Michelin Tire. You got a big job there. You wear a fancy lab coat. And you make a ton of money. And 30 years, you can get a pin. That's so exciting. I can't believe you're doing that. You're going to be the only woman in South Carolina that's a preacher. Oh my God. How can you do that? Through the days, I became a recruiter and I did very well. My soul wasn't happy. So I swear I'm happy. Where's your soul happy? When you're praying in your life, where's your soul happy? Because that's the agreement you made when you came here, is to be in your happy soul and to focus on that energetic presence. And finally, when you do a prayer, you want to have spirit in it. You want to have it be fluid. You want to have it moving. You want to have it beyond measure. You want to have it be extensive and expansive and infinite in that it may be bigger than what you ever realized, right? It's not going to be a box prayer. It's not going to be just one way it can happen. It might be two ways, it might be three ways. One way may lead to another path. It's that energetic presence, you see. then your prayer becomes your reality. That's where this time, past time, future time have no time. Because everything you've declared, you will meet in your lifetime. That I guarantee you. In closing, so grandfather is having difficulty with hearing, and his kids have been telling him for years, please go get your ears checked. And so he does, and the doctor said, you need hearing aids on both sides. You know, come back and I've fitted them for you and you'll have them. So he comes back and the doctor said, how's it going? He goes, oh, I love it. I can hear everything. I can hear every word. I can hear every movement. I can hear somebody touching their hands. I can hear it all. And the doctor said, well, your kids must be very excited. He said, I haven't told them. And I have changed my will 3 times. So remember, the universe hears well, is listening, is attentive to your life. Be all the way in. Thank you for coming today. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.